joining me now in the host position. Of course, a man who's held 5 world titles, and I'm proud to say also is a friend. Ray Leonard, good seeing you again, buddy.
How you doing, JB?
Not bad at all. Still no marks on that face at all, huh?
Well, my wife takes care of that.
That means you're teaching her how to box. Let's set the stage for the upcoming bout, James Toney and Roy Jones. Now, many people talk about Roy Jones being a mirror image in many ways of yourself. Size up Roy Jones first.
I think that's very flattering comment to make that Roy Jones resembles me. I think Roy Jones has his own style. Roy Jones is a young man with extraordinary talent, incredible hand speed, foot speed. I think his power is very deceptive, and I really appreciate it. He's very explosive, especially inside the left hook that he was able to knock out Tank with was just incredible. I think he's a guy who's getting stronger and better.
So many people, the boxing aficionados, if you will, split down the middle almost in terms of who will win this fight because Roy Jones is such an unknown commodity. The fact that his resume is not as stellar as that of James Toney, do you think that will hurt him at all tonight, Ray?
I don't particularly think so. I think with Roy Jones and James Toney, both men are capable of defeating the other. I mean, what you have in James Toney is a guy with big-time attitude, a guy who's a throwback to the old-time fighters. He uses his shoulders, he's very powerful, and he's very quick, he's very sly, very crafty. The way that Roy Jones can win this fight if he boxes and not decide to slug with James Toney, stay on the outside and utilize his hands and foot speed. James has to make Roy get exchange punch for punch, and that way will be in James Toney's favor.
And very quickly, the experience that James Toney brings into the ring, he's able to adjust no matter what the opponent's style is.
That's true, JB, but I also feel that what's going to make a difference is the fact that James Toney's had major problems making the weight. So it depends on what is taken out of him, which gives Roy Jones the edge.
Before I let you go, I got to ask you, your prediction on tonight.
I say in the early rounds, it probably will be James Toney, but later down the stretch, it will be Roy Jones because, again, that weight deficit is a problem.
All right, I got to find out your beauty secrets, buddy.
My wife.
All right, I'll take that one to heart, too. Good seeing you again, Ray. All right, so the main event is coming up, and we heard Ray's thoughts on that one. Well, folks, this is the one that the people have been talking about as we get set for James Toney and Roy Jones Jr. It is one of the most exciting weight divisions in boxing. A mix of power and quickness, the middleweights have provided fight fans with a century's worth of magical moments and memories. There was a broiling July heat in Colma, California, when Stanley Ketchel defeated Billy Packey in a 20-round unanimous decision. And the day in 1912, when an American named George Klaus traveled to France and captured the vacant title from Frenchman Georges Carpentier. While the 20s may be remembered as the golden age of sport, for the middleweights, this decade would represent the battle between Henry Graham and Mickey Walker in one of boxing's most vicious fights ever. As Americans were coping with their stock losses, Marcel Fell was winning by disqualification over Lou Broulard, and Freddie Steele by unanimous decision over Babe Briscoe. In the next decade, Henry Armstrong, the only fighter to hold 3 world titles simultaneously, featherweight, lightweight, and welterweight, would fall short of winning his 4th title against Severino Garcia in a 10-round draw. Later in the 40s, fight fans were treated to the Zale Graziano Classics. Zale was victorious in the first of their 3 meetings, but here in the rematch, very rare home movies show Graziano evening the score with a 6-round knockout. A year later, in typical Zale Graziano fashion, Rocky would once again lose his precious title to the Man of Steel. One man symbolized boxing in the 50s, Sugar Ray Robinson. There were his 6 battles with the Raging Bull, Jake LaMotta, his dramatic victory over Randy Turpin, and his come-from-behind victory over Rocky Graziano. Even in defeat against welterweight champ Carmen Basilio, pound for pound, Sugar Ray Robinson was the best in boxing. The turbulent 60s were befitting for the brutal middleweight war between Dick Tiger and Gene Coleman. And the 3 grueling bouts between Nino Benvenuti and Emil Griffith. As the 70s began, so did Carlos Monzon's 9-year reign of the middleweight division, beginning with his 12th-round victory over Nino Benvenuti. The marvelous one, Marvin middleweight champions. James Toney, the IBF super middleweight champ. He is out. And former middleweight title holder Roy Jones Jr. It's billed as the fight of the year. It has the potential to be the fight of the decade. Rarely in the sport of boxing do two undefeated champions, two superb athletes, two warriors in the prime of their careers come together to face one another for the championship of the world. Tonight, TBKO presents this very matchup as James Toney defends his perfect record and IBF super middleweight title against former middleweight champion Roy Jones Jr. And it's all brought to you by Beechwood Aged Budweiser. It's always been true. This Bud's for you. Well, excitement and enthusiasm are building here in the MGM Grand Garden as the main event is just moments away. Boxing fans are anxiously anticipating a fight that many feel has the potential to be one of the best in recent memory. And the auditorium is nearly full as the folks have heard an awful lot about this one, and the boxing purists are looking forward to it. And welcome once again to TBKO's presentation of the main event between James Lights Out Toney, the current IBF super middleweight champion, and Roy Jones Jr., the former IBF middleweight champion. He relinquished that title to move up in weight and the challenge for the belt that Toney currently holds. You know, folks, this is indeed a rarity in boxing. Two undefeated world champions willing to risk everything in pursuit of the best available competition, and of course, the moniker as the best pound-for-pound fighter in boxing today. I know the time for talking is over. It is now time for action. So let's take it back downstairs to Gil Clancy, Larry Merchant, and Jim Lambert.
All right, thanks very much, JB. Just a few more words. Moments ago, you heard James Brown interview Sugar Ray Leonard. At the end of the interview, he asked him what would happen in the fight, and Ray suggested the early rounds might belong to James Toney, the late rounds to Roy Jones, but as far as picking a winner is concerned, he hedged. No slap at Ray. That's pretty typical of experts throughout the sport of boxing, because Larry Merchant, one of the marks of what a great fight this is that so many people in the sport don't seem to have a real handle, Gil's one of them, on exactly what is going to happen once that first bell sounds. Why are people so indecisive as to what is going to happen here? What's the reason?
3 words. Roy Jones Jr. We don't know up to this second whether he's a superstar or a fraud. We do know about James Toney. He's a bull outside of the ring. Outside of the ring, he's a raging, angry bull. Inside of the ring, he's a very precise, deadly, well-schooled bullfighter. And as a champion, he's been everything a champion should be, taking on all comers, the toughest guy, and seeming to get better and better with each and every fight. Roy Jones, meanwhile, has avoided all of the toughest opponents. But to back up his conviction, he did give up that 160-pound championship for this opportunity. It does mean something to him. And the way I see it, he's like a gambler who has collected a pile of chips slowly but surely. And now he's pushing all those chips into the table on one roll of the dice. His problem is that James Toney has been playing for high stakes before so often, he almost represents the house.
Indeed, a vast edge in experience here on Toney's side, but there are other edges which experts see being in Roy Jones's corner. For more on that, let's break the fight down, Gil, into 5 categories, and you give us your analysis as to where the advantage lies in each category.
As far as punching power is concerned, I think it's dead even. Jones can get you out with one punch a lot better than James Toney, but Toney can put his power punches together better than Roy Jones. Quickness is a big edge for Roy Jones. Hand and foot speed, he's like Quicksilver in the ring. You don't know what's going to happen. As far as defense goes, I have to give it to Roy Jones. I've never seen him hit with a solid punch, so therefore I have to give him the edge on defense. Experience, a big edge for James Toney. He's been in a lot of tough fights, and he's come through in the clutch. And also the intangibles to James Toney. He has a tremendous will to win, finds a way to win under adverse conditions.
Experience and intangibles, those are hugely important categories, but you put 3 check marks in Roy Jones Jr.'s column. Does that mean that Jones should win the fight?
I don't know.
find out. Tail of the tape. And you can see that James Toney weighed in at 167, Roy Jones at 168. They're similar in age, similar in height, similar in reach, but the big story, James Toney supposedly went to bed last night 8 hours after weighing in at 167 and weighed 183. Tonight, before leaving his dressing room to come into the ring, he stood on a scale, and you can see that if this scale is accurate, James told us the truth. He weighed 184 pounds, 17 pounds over yesterday's weigh-in level as he got ready to come into the ring tonight.
That's an astonishing rising weight, Gil. I don't know if any young fighter has ever had to do anything like that. Take a look at the punch stat numbers here. Don't know what these mean, except you can see that Toney is a busier, constantly busier, and more efficient fighter. Jabs. Jones uses the jab mainly to set up his hooks. He's not really interested in doing any serious business with the jab, but it's his hooks that will determine the outcome of this fight.
Rules of the bout with our unofficial ringside scorer, Harold Letterman.
James Toney and Roy Jones Jr. will box tonight using the rules of the International Boxing Federation. 12 rounds. There is no standing 8 count, no 3 knockdown rule. You cannot be saved by the bell in any round, including the last round. Only the referee can stop the fight. And in case the cut is caused by an accidental headbutt, and that cut causes the fight to be stopped, we go to the scorecards after 6 rounds have been completed. Before that, it's a technical draw. Jim.
Packed house at ringside here at the MGM Grand. And Roy Jones Jr. chooses to enter in a mock tuxedo. You see the designation there, former IBF middleweight champion. He gave up that championship, Larry, for the right to come up 8 pounds and challenge for James Toney's super middleweight title.
Well, for him, this is his entire career. It's a fight he's been aiming for since he got robbed of that decision at the Seoul Olympics. I call his style, Gil, as a kind of a brilliant amateur. He can get away with doing things because of his quickness that very, very few fighters can. Sort of like Muhammad Ali or Hector Camacho, a few others I can name. One thing we knew about Ali was he had the right stuff inside when all was said and done. That's what we have to find out about this man tonight.
Well, that's what we're going to find out, Larry. Roy Jones himself doesn't know what he's going to do in that ring. He's very, very unorthodox, but he has great balance. He's a great athlete, and things just happen for him.
Fighters' records are brought to you tonight by The Ring, the Bible of Boxing. Roy Jones Jr. is unbeaten, 26 fights, 26 wins, 23 knockouts. You see he's listed as the number 2 IBF super middleweight contender. He is regarded as having spectacular knockout power with either hand.
Well, you know, they say that the punch that hurts you is the punch that you don't see. And he throws his punches from such odd angles that he can nail you and you just don't see the punch.
And now Jones may be forced to play a little bit of a waiting game in the ring. But here comes James Toney.
We've got to talk about that weight. I've never heard of anything like this, particularly for a young athlete. When I was playing football, I knew of guys who had lost 8 pounds in a workout in the severe heat. They get it all back by the afternoon. But to put on 16 or 17 pounds in such a short period of time, can it do them any good?
I think you can do him a lot more harm than good. I think you're supposed to be your most efficient weight, especially when you're fighting a guy that has a lot of speed. You don't want to give up any kind of speed. And putting that much weight back on could certainly slow him up. He may look like he's fighting with cement shoes on.
You know, Ray Leonard said an interesting thing before. The conventional wisdom has been that Jones had to get Toney hurt, in trouble early in the fight because Toney would come on. But now because of this weight situation, we don't know which way it's going to go.
I know that Jones is always dangerous very, very early. I've seen a few of his fights, and he lands that left hook from way outside, which is an unorthodox thing to do because he does leave himself a little bit open. But the first time he hits the opponent with that left hook, you can see the surprise on their face, like, what the heck is this?
You saw Toney waiting briefly as he refused to enter the ring until the purple dressing system would play his entry music. Now here he comes. IBF Super Middleweight Champion James Toney. Since he won the middleweight title from Michael Nunn in 1991, this has been the most active major champion in the sport of boxing, Larry.
Yeah, and that's why he's gotten better and better. The only champion I know of who's been really active during his reign, other champion, is Julio Cesar Chavez. In his prime, when he was great, he kept active, fighting fights in Mexico none of us even ever heard of, and it's paid off for him, and it's paid off for Toney so far.
One more footnote on the long battle to trim down to the 168-pound weight limit and then the massive weight gain in the 30 hours since. According to Nevada State Athletic Commission Dr. Flip Homansky, rapid fluid loss followed by rapid fluid intake would make someone more vulnerable to bruising and cutting. So we'll have to watch and see if that holds true for Toney tonight. James Toney's record in the ring, 44 wins, 2 draws, 29 KOs. We've seen him win from every conceivable circumstance, by come-from-behind knockout, by come-from-behind decision, by early knockout, by late knockout, you name it, he's done it. And now let's go up to ring announcer Michael Buffer for the pre-fight introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, Top Rank Incorporated along with your undisputed, undefeated king of beers, Budweiser, proud to be your bud, present World Championship Boxing. This bout is sanctioned by the International Boxing Federation with the approval and sanctioning of the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Chairman Dr. James Nave. Commissioners Nat Carasali, Luther Mack, Dr. Elias Ghanem, and Kristen Rivera. The executive director is Mark Ratner. IBF supervisor ringside, Bobby Lee Jr. Chief medical officer in attendance, Dr. Flip Homansky. Attending physicians are Dr. James Wishgame and Dr. Robert Boy. The timekeeper at the bell, Al Bisick. Counting for the knockdown seconds, Jane Broadfoot. The scoring for this bout will be done on a 10-point must system, and the 3 judges assigned are Glenn Hamada, John Stewart, and Jerry Robb. And when the bell rings, the man in charge of the action, working for the 104th time in a world title bout, referee Richard Steele. And now, ladies and gentlemen, from the MGM Grand Garden, here at the MGM Grand Hotel, Casino, and Theme Park of Las Vegas, Nevada, somebody's O must go. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! 12 rounds of boxing for the Super Middleweight Championship of the World. Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing the white trunks with gold trim, and weighing in at 168 pounds. This 1988 Olympic silver medalist has a professional record of 26-0, 23 by knockout victory. Tonight, he steps up from the middleweight division, where he has already captured a world title and puts his perfect record on the line. Ladies and gentlemen, from Pensacola, Florida, introducing the challenger and former middleweight champion of the world, Jones Jr. And his opponent across the ring, fighting out in the red corner, wearing black and weighing in at 167 pounds. He brings his outstanding record into the ring tonight of 44 victories without a loss. He has scored 29 KOs and has 2 draws. And while compiling that record, he has captured 2 world titles. Ladies and gentlemen, from Ann Arbor, Michigan, presenting the 2-time world champion and reigning super middleweight champion of the world, James Lights out. Toney.
All right, I spoke to both fighters in the dressing room. I'm cautioning you again. Obey my commands at all times. Shake hands, good luck.
Jim, when we get unbeaten champions meet like this, we often get a kind of creative friction that bursts out into the pure flame. That's what we're looking for tonight.
One quick note, Gil and Larry. I was told late this afternoon by a source I trust from Roy Jones Jr.'s camp that he hurt his right hand in sparring a month ago, has not hit the heavy bag with the right hand for more than a month, has not thrown a power shot and a sparring partner with the right hand for more than a month. So he comes into the ring tonight with the right hand a mystery to him and those around him.
Putting more and more emphasis on the left hook that does the most damage for him.
He's been throwing triple left hooks in sparring to make up for the absence of the right hand. And he throws a right hand there, seemingly with conviction.
And Jim, you notice when James Toney stalks an opponent or when he jabs, he has a tendency to drop that right hand, which can be very, very dangerous against a good left hooker like Roy Jones Jr. There's that quick left hook, again from an unorthodox angle.
Toney has blocked all of those punches.
Jones short with the right hand there. Toney looking confident, if a bit defensive so far. Willing to wait, see what Jones has got here at the outset.
He's keeping his hands up and he's putting pressure on Roy Jones. And again, you can see the quickness of Jones, that side-to-side movement.
Jabbing and hooking with the left hand. Only a couple of right hand shots so far by Jones. Nothing has landed. Toney has been cautious and measured in his approach. Right hand misses for James. Right hand was a glancing blow.
In the basement, right there.
James Toney told us he would be able to counter because he didn't think that Jones would be able to resist taking the lead in the fight.
Up to this point, Jones has been doing all of the leading.
There's a quick right hand by Jones, and it looked okay there. Jones's quickness, a factor here in round one. He's been able to double and triple up with the left hook.
Catch the hook, come back with your hook. Catch the hook, come back with your hook. Keep cutting the ring off. They can miss them shots, especially the right hand. You can twist on the right hand, counter the right hand. But keep that hand. He ain't getting it already, it's gonna sit that hook up. You're catching clean sooner or later. Way to work, deep breath. Okay, we're ready. Let me stop pulling, baby. Way to work. Way to work, champ. Keep it so.
You heard Bill Miller talking to James Toney. Watch the left hook. Just watch the left hook. And when you catch it or duck it, throw your own left hook. Good advice, Gil?
Absolutely. If he could nail Jones, if Jones misses that left hook, doing an awful lot of damage. And there's Toney trying to get off that big left hook.
It was blocked by Jones. Toney looking like he wants to open up a little bit more in this round after an exceedingly cautious first. Couple of body shots by Jones.
One sounded like it landed on the cup for him. And again, Toney carries that right hand across his chest. He's not protecting his chin. He got it up there, though.
And Jones managed to thunder one left hook behind Toney's guard, but most of these punches being blocked on the gloves by James Toney.
But again, if he throws 7 and 2 get through, he's still scoring some points. Toney has to punch back.
Toney hasn't found many openings.
And there was the quickness of Jones again. He made Toney miss and nailed him with 2 of those unorthodox punches. They come from all angles.
Right hand to the body by Jones. Finally, James Toney gets through with a left hook to the chest of Jones. It drove him back into the corner. Good right hand lead by Jones.
Again, Jones makes a lot of very tactical errors, but he has such fast reflexes that he can get away with making mistakes. There's that quickness.
Fast hands. Leaping with the left hook. Opened the glove as he threw the right hand to the body. Jones hurt the right hand against Bernard Hopkins a few fights back.
Get out! Don't hold him!
Sneaking in the right hand after Jones had landed over the top.
Right, step back, step back.
Again, these two fighters completely different styles. Toney is just trying to walk in, put a little pressure, physical and mental.
And the left hook behind the guard, Gil. Jones wobbled Toney just slightly with that left hook.
I know that. You got to short knot shots up a little bit. When you can catch it when it comes in. Especially when you're twisting with the right hand, that could be a hook.
Here's the flurry at the end of the round by Roy Jones. None of those was a clean punch, but they are scoring punches. They will count in his favor. His quickness is decisive through the first 2 rounds.
Come here, on his head, let's go. Keep it controlled, just like this. Doing good. Keep it going. Stop pulling, let's go. Let's go, baby.
Big disparity in punch output in rounds 1 and 2. Would you tell James Toney to step up the activity level, Gil?
He's going to have to do something. He can't walk in without throwing punches.
Low blows by Jones. Steele didn't say anything. And still the edge in quickness is decisive, as Larry put it.
Quickness and reflex, Jim. I mean, he makes Toney miss, and he's so quick countering.
Showboating by Jones. You tempt fate, I think. Left hook, and down goes Toney.
You know, his seat never hit the canvas.
They're going to call it a knockdown anyway.
I agree that I don't think it was a knockdown. He wobbled back, but he did not go down.
Reggie Johnson knocked him down in 1991. This, if it is officially scored as a knockdown, is the second time in Toney's career that he's been down. Crowd on its feet. Jones with plenty of time left in the third.
Up to this point, it looks like that added weight that they put on James Toney is an albatross around his neck because he's very, very slow. Or maybe it's Jones is just that fast. But he's being completely outsped in this fight so far.
Jones looks fast against everybody, but he certainly looked faster against Toney than some might have suspected. Good counter by Toney. Jones says, come on.
That was Toney's best punch of the fight. He caught Jones coming and nothing happened.
Right hand lead by Jones. Unorthodoxy playing in his favor now.
He's fighting with so much confidence, Jim.
Step back, step back.
Well, if he didn't use the right hand in sparring, he's using it here, and so far fairly effectively, although most of the heavy metal has come from the left.
Yes, but he has thrown that right hand to set up the left hook.
Sweeping left hook by Toney.
Come on, try to get out here.
And more quickness inside from Roy Jones. Good defense there by Toney, who was able to duck and slip.
Yeah, but it's okay to say no, 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 but they're still scoring points for Jones.
Just a little off the mark. And we can get it on the mark and take the right hand away from it. I like it. Just a little off the mark. When you're going in there, double up on the jab.
Here's part of the debate going on with hand gestures and fists. We don't see from that angle whether Jones indeed went down. Perhaps we'll have another angle that we can see it. Here it'll tell us right now. You see his behind never hit the canvas, Gil.
Absolutely. I did not think it was a knockdown. He did stagger back, but he didn't go down.
Harold Letterman, let's open Harold quickly. Why might that have been scored a knockdown, Harold?
Jim, if the ropes are holding you up, if the ropes wouldn't have been there and you would have hit the canvas, that's a knockdown under the rules.
So in your view, is that a knockdown?
A knockdown for sure.
All right, round 4 begins. And given the knockdown, you've now got at least the possibility that Toney is 4 points behind on all 3 scorecards. Not necessarily, but it's possible.
Well, he's digging himself a big hole right now. We've seen him come back in the past from bad cuts, etc., but he can't get too far behind with this will-o'-the-wisp he's in there with.
You heard Bill Miller tell him to keep throwing the right hand, and he was trying it there, but he missed wide.
Well, in my opinion, he should be concentrating on the body.
Another left hook by Jones. That one didn't stun Toney, but it prevented him from throwing anything in return. Toney just not able to counter effectively, Gil, except for one time so far. Solid left hook there. Toney talking to Jones.
Again, what talking doesn't do you a bit of good. The other guy's piling up points.
Is he ever?
Toney just looks like he can't get off. Whether it's Jones' movement that's bothering him or the extra weight that's bothering him, something's bothering him because he traps Jones and gets beat to the punch time after time.
Well, there was a good counter right, and he came with another right cross behind it. Jones throwing right hand in left hook combinations. And a right hand over the top from Toney. And Toney just beginning to get off a little bit here in round 4.
No holding. Right, step back. No holding.
is getting closer to finding the range. Right now, you can just see him getting closer and closer to the mark.
Getting more active. Good left by Jones as he wound the right hand up. He lands 3 or 4 more punches. The hand speed display continues spectacularly for Roy Jones.
Just unorthodox punches. Toney doesn't know where he is half the time. Where Jones is, I mean.
We're getting a little closer to him now. We're getting a little closer to him now. When you hit him with the right hand, go back to left hook. Woo! Come on, baby. Getting a little closer to him now. The reasoning was up. Hit him with the right hand, come back to left foot. But jab your way in. Doing what you do. Let it work. Let it work. You're slowing down something.
Harold Letterman, your scorecard after 4 rounds. 4 rounds to nothing, 40-35. Roy Jones Jr. He's really given James Toney a beating so far. He certainly gets an extra point for the clean knockdown in round 3. Roy Jones all the way.
I've got Roy winning the first 4 rounds just as well.
And I have as well.
Toney said to Bill Miller, "Boy, I'm having fun. Only a prize fighter, after taking some of these punches, could say that."
They trade shots to open round 5.
But again, Jones landed the last 2 punches of that exchange.
And the first 2 punches there. James has nothing to throw. Two more left hands.
His unorthodox movement and his unorthodox punches are completely befuddling James Toney up to this point.
Right hand, left hand combination by Jones landed. Toney landed a left in return. Toney starting to snap to it a little bit, but still outgunned in almost every exchange.
Toney has got to punch to the body. Can't. That's where those punches belong. Stay downstairs for a while, then that hit will come to you.
He finds himself so far down that he's got to go for a late round knockout against Jones. That's going to be tough because of Jones's quickness and defense.
And if Jones finds himself comfortably ahead, he can certainly kill a clock. Big left hook. Big left hook by Jones. 2 left hooks.
Toney pretending not to be hurt, but he's wobbled. Now James lands a right hand in return. Toney trying to take advantage of the chance opened up by Jones's aggression.
Jones will not let Toney into this fight. Toney lands a hard punch, he comes back with 2.
Roy tried to end it with a right hand right there. Just missed.
Right hand counter by Toney, but Jones is moving away with the punch. Here's where Toney has to get off. When he has him on the ropes, he's got to bang to the body immediately.
He's got to be busy. That left hand landed, but it was a glancing blow.
Talking about unorthodox. He spun around and landed the left hook. Jones is supposed to be the unorthodox guy.
Solid left hook by Jones. And you saw James Toney's head snap to the side again. Toney's got the lug sail out. He's starting to go to work. But Jones continues to box circles around him and land the heavier shots as well.
Jones certainly answered some questions about whether he has the right stuff inside him in that round.
He got nailed with a couple of punches, Larry, but again, he would not allow Toney to take the edge. Right back.
It's 6th round, baby. Come in the 6th. Come in. Okay, here. Come in.
Once again, let's watch those fast hands if we can see him, because James Toney doesn't apparently able to see him. There's a perfect example of an unorthodox punch coming when you don't expect it, Gil.
And you don't see it. Those are the ones that really can get to you.
James Toney has been talking about going up to heavyweight. He said the hardest part of every fight is making weight. It's only supposition, but you suspect at this moment that making weight this time took a lot out of James Toney.
I'm not ready to take any credit away from Jones, because what Jones is doing here is just dictating everything on his own, and I'm not sure it has anything to do with the weight yet.
61% landing percentage in round 5 for Jones. 37 out of 61, mostly power shots. It's terrific stuff. Another left hook on the button by Roy Jones Jr.
And you notice that Jones doesn't set things up with a left jab. That's the unorthodox part of his style. He doesn't set things up. He'll move with his feet and all of a sudden leap in with that left hook, and it's very, very effective. But again, by doing that, he leaves himself open for a split second, but so far, nobody has been able to take advantage of it. Nobody that he's fought. He's so quick.
Hurry to get out. Hurry to get out. Keep him out. Don't hold him. Don't hold him. Don't hold him. Let him go. Let him go. Let him go.
Again,
Crack
the
leg right hand.
exchange. Jones lands the last punch. Last tag. Roy Jones.
Right, step back, step back.
Tony's remembering now to go to the body when he gets Jones against the ropes.
You notice that the Tony just doesn't even try to throw it yet. He just pours out to it. But again, it's the footwork on that left hook, that fast left hook.
Doing and dying with yet another left hook.
Same thing every time. There's no jabs involved. He doesn't have to feint the jab. He just leaps in quickly, gets an angle, and bang, right in there with that left hook.
And if you told James Toney 2 days ago that Roy could do that, he'd have said, no way.
Get out. Hurry to get out. Right, step back, step back.
But you're right, he's done it all the way through tonight.
Let's keep putting no time up. Come on, keep putting. Put your arm back. Right, step back, step back. Come on, guys, let's work.
There was a question again where Toney was just too slow getting off, and instead of Jones waiting to block a punch, beat him to the punch. He's back in the corner again, and again, who gets off first? Jones.
Halfway through the battle for James Toney's IBF Super Middleweight Championship so far. A spectacular, virtuoso performance by the challenger, Roy Jones Jr.
Now, then come here. I want you just some of the jabs, some of the hooks you go down from inside. That outside will stick to that comes to the middle. Right. Time, put a little more pressure. Put a little pressure. We got him on our territory now. Coming into the championship round. Big through the middle. Through the middle. Try to make you flicking for everything you do. Every time you flick at him, man, you're going for it. All right. Okay.
Although we're only halfway through the scheduled 12 rounds, we're already at that stage where James Toney looks like he's going to have to do something dramatic to get back into the fight.
It would have to be very, very dramatic, Larry, like a knockout. Counting that knockdown, he's already 7 points behind, and he's got 6 rounds to catch up.
He's done it in the past, but maybe not against fighters the quality of Roy Jones Jr. He was down on points when he knocked out Nunn in the 11th to win the World Middleweight Championship in '91. He needed to knock out Tim Littles in a specific round because of a bad head cut to win that fight, and did it against a fighter who'd never been down or out. So it's not out of the question, but this is still all Roy Jones as round 7 begins.
But again,
Solid left. Toney in a little bit of trouble.
again, Jones is really never directly in front of James Toney. He takes those angle shots, and Toney really doesn't know where the punches are coming from. There was a foul by Roy Jones. We have to rope and use that for leverage.
Don't hold the rope. Don't hold the rope.
And Steele tells him not to do it. James Toney just completely befuddled by Jones's speed, unorthodoxy, quickness.
Again, Toney, he's playing hide and seek with Toney in the ring. It's a square ring, they're both inside, but half the time Toney doesn't know where he is. They're waiting against the ropes.
What in the world can Toney do, Gil, to nullify the effectiveness of Jones's left hook?
The only thing he can do is start banging to the body. When you have a guy against the ropes, don't even think. Throw a straight right into the body and try to come back with a left hook. You're going to hit something, even if you hit his arms. But if you hesitate, wait for an opening, Jones gets off first and beats him to the punch. Hey, you can see Toney hesitating.
Good counter there by James Toney, but it's hard to find a round here that you might have given to the champion. What other middleweights could throw combinations with that hand speed, Gil?
I would have to go back a long way, maybe to the Sugar Ray Robinson. He can throw punches that fast and that effective.
Work out. Work your way out. Punch, your hands are free. Pull your arms back, Roy. Pull your arms back.
And remember, this is 168 pounds. 8 pounds up from the old middleweight limit of 160.
Again, Jones comes back in the exchanges. Good left hook by James Toney.
Best punch of the fight for Toney, the left hook. That ended round 7.
You hear me? Especially when we're inside. We have to take this one. We're on our territory now. We have to make our move.
Harold, 7 rounds, your score.
Larry, 70-62, 7-0. Roy Jones. I never saw a super middleweight throw 6, 7, 8 punch combinations like he throws. He's absolutely beautiful. The guy in the short pants is kicking the crap out of the other guy. I mean, knocking him from pillar to post. He is the only killer in Pensacola, Florida, who's not a regular lifer.
All right, let's watch what happens here on the ropes. Jones seems to have an edge whether Toney is on the ropes or he's on the ropes. His hands, his fast hands, get him out of trouble.
Five rounds left.
So far, both fighters have caught some stiff punches, but they haven't really hurt each other that badly yet. I was surprised even Toney landed a few good straight punches. They just wiped right off of Jones.
I thought that Toney was hurt a couple of times during the fight, Larry. Not seriously, but hurt.
How about now? How about right now?
He's just being completely overwhelmed. And
I think a left hook to the body hurt James Toney badly to set this up. Jones landed a wallop to Toney's ribcage.
Keep him in front. Keep him in front.
And James Toney hasn't thrown a punch since that body shot.
and look how cool Roy Jones
Keep him in
is.
front. Don't hold. Right, step back, Philly.
Jones has knocked men out with body shots. Glenn Wolfe in the first round, for instance. And now Toney begins to throw again, but
Tried to counter, but again, those reflexes of Jones, just nothing's there when you punch at it.
2 more left hooks right on the button.
And the thing that amazes me, you know, you say Jones is a boxer, he does this without using the left jab.
Both men have dispensed with the jab completely. And this is just going to be a slugfest the rest of the way, isn't it?
James Toney always has had a good left jab. Outside, he proved it in the Prince Charles Williams fight. But again,
he's not using it. He's just walking in, Gil. There he paused with it a little bit. But the snapping left jab is gone from Toney's arsenal. Just walking in.
We thought Jones would move more away from Toney, but he's really been contemptuous of Toney in the last couple of rounds.
Again, he can go on the ropes. No matter where he goes, Toney just can't hit him.
Sledgehammer right over the top by Toney. Lancing blow. Didn't get all of the target.
Again in that exchange, last tag by Roy Jones.
Toney showing some assertiveness now, but he took a lot of this round off after he took that crushing left to the body early on. There's a left hook by James Toney. And Jones comes back with a fury. And Steele stops Toney right in the middle of his best action.
What is Steele doing? What is Richard Steele doing?
He thought he heard the bell. And now he does hear the bell. And that really hurt James Toney. Steele comes over to talk to the timekeeper, trying to get the signal straight.
There's Toney in a ring with only 2 other people, and he's looking for the fighter in it.
Round 9 begins. You saw the champion breathing hard in his corner.
Right now, this 168-pound championship belongs to Roy Jones. It's up to James Toney to win it back.
And Bill Miller still hasn't spoken to James Toney with any real sense of urgency, saying, James, you're going to have to do something big. You know, he's talking very matter-of-factly. Slipped by Jones, and Toney did not take advantage.
Toney a little more cautious than he's been in other fights. And Jones's left hand has shown us the reason why, over and over. You said before the fight, Larry Merchant, that Roy Jones Jr. was a mystery. How much of the unknown is left now?
Well, beyond any question, he's answered a lot of those questions. It's in his grasp.
Looks as if Roy Jones is taking a round off.
He may take the rest of the fight off, Gil.
Combination by Jones. Left hook over the top by Jones. Toney trying to stop, but not punching his way in effectively. the more effective of the two punches there. Toney sweeping left, missed badly.
Look at that footwork of Roy Jones, side to side. Again, last take by Roy Jones. He lulls you to sleep and then he tries to put you to sleep.
3 rounds to go.
There you go. There you go. You feel that hand up there just like you do. Run it up. Right up there. Put it on his head. Other water bottle, Ronnie. I'm here hard, man. Come on, give it to him. Give it to him. Give it to him, Good? We're down to our rounds. We gotta make our move. We got to close the gap. You hear me? All right. Close the gap now. 10th round. We got to have it. I don't leave for 9 minutes fighting. I got to have it.
So far, the Mongoose is too quick for the Cobra.
By this time, maybe James Toney's taken off about 7 or 8 pounds, Larry, so maybe he'll be a little quicker for the rest of the fight.
Hard to see so far what he could find that would do the necessary damage to Jones at this point.
Well, one big left hook, a right hand on the chin could help at this weight. And the other guy can do a lot of funny things. You can just see the quickness of Roy Jones. Constantly moving, constantly fainting.
Toney so cool, so non-existent as he gave the first 2 rounds away. Then he got knocked down in the 3rd. And since that time, Roy Jones, to our eyes at least, has seemed to simply pile up the points.
Again, Jones is just such an unorthodox fighter. A couple of times in the fight, when he's against ropes, he actually pulls his head back, which is a fundamental no-no, but he gets away with it.
Jones again stepping in with that left hook and then gone as Toney looked around to find it.
Right now, they're cooling each other off with those missed roundhouse punches.
Punching it out, man. Punching it out. Right, step back.
Again, Toney moves him into the corners and against the ropes, but then he allows Jones to get off first. And he's chasing. Nothing happens. Let's see who gets off first here. That was a dangerous left hook by James Toney.
Thunderous right inside by Jones.
Jones is looking at the clock. That could be an indication they started to get a little tired.
Come on, let's work this side. Work that side. Pull it back. Pull it back.
Chopping right hand for Toney.
Jones was moving away with the punch. Wasn't a very effective punch.
Got to have this 6 minutes, okay? All right. Show it to me. Let's go. We got to have it. Keep him turning, champ. Don't get a nut we want to have. Make it you. Be that needle in the haystack. Be that needle. You got 2 rounds left, champ. 2 rounds left, and you remaining. 2 rounds left, and you
Harold,
remaining.
10 rounds, your score.
Larry, I thought James Toney stole the 10th round. Roy didn't do a heck of a lot. 9 rounds to 1, 99 to 90. Roy Jones, he is so quick. He's moving so nicely, landing so many great combination punches. You just can't take it away from him. James Toney's going to need a dynamite finish to win this fight.
Dynamite is the operative word. He's going to have to throw a stick of dynamite in there to blow this man up, but I'm not sure that would do it.
Well, the only thing, in my opinion, now that can do it is a knockout.
Roy Jones only threw 32 punches in round 10. That drops way down from his previous punch output. It was in the 11th round when Toney scored the dramatic comeback knockout of Michael Nunn back in 1991 that won him the middleweight championship. But Nunn is not the kind of power puncher that Roy Jones is.
You heard the advice to Jones in the corner, be a needle in a haystack. That's a way of the trainer telling him, get out of there, you got the fight won.
Gil, is it even possible that Toney deludes himself into believing that he's still got a shot at winning a decision here?
I would have to say the fighter, yes, but the trainer should know better. The trainer should be telling him, you need a knockout to win this fight.
Bill Miller hasn't said that at any point, has he?
No, he hasn't. He said, we need this 6 minutes. The 6 minutes won't do him any good, in my opinion, and on my scorecard. I think we're going to have an exciting 12th round. Again, Jones is killing the clock, not doing too much this round.
Butting an inside left against Toney's head there. Toney putting in the body work on the ropes, but it's probably too little too late. Crowd begins to try to lift the champion. Well, this goes to show you that James has built a following in his 3 years as a world champion.
Boy, there are a lot of people who bet on him.
Jones nailed Toney with a solid left hook.
And Toney wobbles just slightly against the ropes again.
Look how calm Jones is in there. Sending range fighters and hard punches. He's doing it all.
Watch it. Come on.
You're tempted to say, Larry, that for a decision to be taken away from Roy Jones here, it would almost have to be the Olympics.
Now, if this was taken away from Roy Jones, it'd be worse than the Olympics. He may have been a little tired before Jones, but he's got a second win. He's right back in there now.
And still, James Toney showing none of the desperation-style commitment that we all think would be necessary for him to salvage the fight.
Not to have these guys. Not to have it, James. We need it here. We need this here. I got to have this here. We need it. There's no more tomorrow. This is it. I'm here. Okay? I want you to touch him, put them 3 and 4 point combinations on him and go. I'm here. I'm on here. You want, let me talk. Final one, okay? Boy, listen to me. Don't give him a chance. Don't give him a chance to take nothing, okay? Give it to me.
In the corner of the undefeated champion with the best record of any undefeated world titleist in the sport, there was silence for the last 20 seconds of that 1-minute break between rounds. Nobody said to James, you must have a knockout to win the fight. So now here comes Toney with his last 3 minutes to try to get something done against aspiring super middleweight champion Roy Jones.
Toney just takes so long to get off. He allowed Jones to escape. He's faking. What is he waiting for?
Keep him up, punch and get out of this.
Good solid body punches by Jones.
Smart stuff.
Keep him in front.
At what point, Gil, does Jones simply try to stay away?
Well, the way they told him in the corner that don't take any chances, but throw some good solid punches. I mean, I know if I was in this corner, I'd be saying, hey, just kill the clock, you got the right one. I didn't do that too often, but when the guy's this far ahead, why take any kind of chance?
Point to the brakes, somebody.
I used to always tell my fighters, you have to win the last round, especially if you're near the guy's hometown.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have told Jones tonight that he had to win this last round, would you?
No, I would not have. As I say, in my opinion, there's no way they could take it away from him.
It's been a spectacular display by Roy Jones. He continues to step in and fire the left hook from time to time. And Toney simply not busy enough to be building toward the climax he needs.
Just can't get off. The movement has been puzzling him all night long. Big right hand by Jones.
Right on the button. 1 minute to go.
Big left hook by Jones.
Yet another one.
And these are solid punches, which means that Toney has to have a chin of granite.
Punch to get out of there. Right.
Sand is running out of the clock with James Toney.
More than 6 years ago, Roy Jones Jr. was victimized by what most observers called the worst decision in the history of amateur boxing. It robbed him of an expected gold medal at the Olympic Games in Seoul in 1988. He's waited all this time to regain center stage. And now tonight, in the biggest fight of his career, against a man regarded by many as the most skilled champion in the sport, Roy Jones has been every bit as dominant as he was that day in Korea so long ago.
Given the kind of fighter that James Toney has been over the last year and a half, that's just a terrific performance by Roy Jones.
Yes, it is. And, you know, we had mentioned about putting on all that weight, and I was told that he had done that in quite a few fights, but that eventually has to catch up with you, Larry. I don't think that James Toney was on top of his game tonight. I know Jones was great, but Toney was not Toney tonight.
Yeah, but I'm in Larry's corner on this one. Let's not harp on that too much, because any harping on it takes away from a spectacular performance by Roy Jones, which, in my view, and maybe in yours, Gil, answered just about every remaining question about it.
I thought he was absolutely great tonight. Again, he's a very unorthodox fighter. He does things his own way. I don't think he even knows what he's going to do, but boy, it's effective.
The fight plan for Jones was for a lot of power shots and very few jabs. He followed it to a T. Let's go to the ring announcer, Michael Buffer, for the official decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, here at the MGM Grand of Las Vegas, we go to the scorecards. John Stewart scores the bout, 119 to 108. Glenn Hamada scores it, 117 to 110. And Jerry Roth has it, 118 to 109 for the winner by unanimous decision. And new super